Love them or hate them, 3-ring binders are a staple for many Magic the Gathering collections. But are they really the enemy of your cards? Today we're separating fact from fiction to see if 3-ring binders can be a safe and effective way to store your Magic the Gathering collection. So, should 3-ring binders have a place in your collection? The answer is yes. Wait, not so fast. 3-ring binders can play an important part of your organizing strategy. In fact, I use almost 100 3-ring binders to store my collection. Let's go over some of the common myths about 3-ring binders. Number 1, and this is the biggest one, 3-ring binders can damage your cards by leaving little dents in them. This is absolutely true, but the likelihood of this happening can also be mitigated. When choosing a 3-ring binder, always try to choose one that has D rings instead of O rings. The D-ring binders have a flat side on the rings that let your pages lay flat. This helps reduce the risk of any damage to your cards. The dents occur when improperly closing the binder. One simple way to minimize this is to take your time when closing the binder. You should pull the pages away from the spine as you close the binder. This will keep the pages properly aligned and away from the rings where the damage occurs. Another way to minimize the risk is to not overfill the binder with pages. Most of the damage occurs at the front or top of the binder. If you overload the binder, you risk the pages getting caught wrong and pinching the cards on top of the rings. Overloading the binders also causes stress on the rings and the closing mechanisms. Side note, the tabs on the ends of the rings are the proper way to open the rings. Do not pull on the rings themselves, as this can cause damage to the rings and lead to improper ring alignment, which can lead to loose pages that expose your cards to damage. Number 2, cards can get bent while putting binders on the shelves. This can happen and is caused by 2 things: overloading your binder and improper handling. First, when handling your binders, always use both hands. One hand should be supporting the bottom, as pages tend to sag, especially if overloaded, and the other hand should be supporting the spine towards the bottom. This will assure no damage is being done when putting the binder back on the shelf. Overloading the binder increases the chances of pages sagging and makes the binder harder to handle. All of the binders I use in my collection are either 1 inch or 1.5 inch. Anything bigger than this, in my opinion, is a recipe for disaster. Number 3, cards fall out of the pages. This happens for one of 2 reasons: cheap binder pages and overstuffing the card slots. I use Ultra Pro Platinum sheets in all of my binders. Cheap pages are not well made and don't properly hold most trading cards. This is an example of a very cheap binder page. The telltale sign of cheap binder pages are these seams that go along the edges. They're easily torn. The second reason your cards can fall out of the page is because people store multiple cards in a single slot. Putting 3 or 4 copies of a card in a sleeve deforms the plastic and makes a loose fit around the cards, which in turn causes the cards to fall out. The only way you should be putting cards in the pages is 2 cards back to back. And this brings me to number 4, my next point: scratching of cards. By putting cards in back to back, as I have all of my cards stored, increases the risk of damaging the cards by scratching the faces of the cards. Small pieces of dirt or dust can sit in between the cards and scratch the faces of the cards as they rub together while inserting or taking the cards out of the pages. Perfect fit sleeves are a perfect fit for this application. A more budget option would be to sleeve your more expensive or favorite cards instead of every card in your binder. This brings me to my next point. Number 5. Cards stick together. Sleeving does help keep the cards from sticking together, but more importantly, it's keeping your binder in a climate-controlled environment. Temperature and moisture can destroy your cards faster than a glue player can say in response. If you're storing your cards on the main level of your home, you are most likely fine. If you do choose to store your collection in the basement, make sure you keep your cards off the floor in case of a flood or condensation from the concrete. If you choose to store your collection in the attic, just don't. Attic is the least climate-controlled area of your house, and temperatures can reach well into the triple digits on certain days. If you must keep your collection in a storage facility, definitely pick one that is climate-controlled. Non-climate-controlled facilities can get very wet and very hot, which spells disaster for your cards. The final piece about 3-ring binders is storing the binders themselves. Binders should never be stacked on top of each other or thrown in a storage bin. If the binders are stored flat, the pages can slip, and this brings us back to the first part of this video, where the rings damage the cards. The cover of the binder can also end up bent from the weight of the binders on top. Binders should be put on bookshelves, like books, with the spine facing out. If you do need to put your binders in a storage tote, make sure that they're standing up vertically instead of laying on top of one another horizontally. So you're thinking, wait a minute, Josh, you just said you use over 100 3-ring binders in your collection. That's true. I use 3-ring binders to house full sets and the rares and foils in my collection. Is there a possibility of damage to my cards by using 3-ring binders? Certainly, but like I said, I have almost 100 binders storing my collection. I use 3-ring binders because they are an inexpensive and convenient option for how I choose to store my collection. Using all the tips I have outlined earlier in this video, I have minimized my risk exposure to a level that I'm comfortable with. Another reason I use 3-ring binders is because of the flexibility. Let's face it, time equals money, and the flexibility of using removable pages saves me time when organizing my cards. My full sets of cards are stored by themselves in a binder, but I also have binders for rares and foils. As I acquire more rares and foils, I can just simply add more pages instead of rearranging every card in my binder. This flexibility allows me to add or remove cards when updating my collection. Another reason I use 3-ring binders is for curb appeal. The 3-ring binders I use have full pockets on both the covers and the spine. This allows me to fully customize the outside of each binder and add that extra wow factor while displaying my collection. It also helps in finding the correct binder when looking for a specific card. So yes, 3-ring binders do have a place in my collection. My binders spend the majority of their lives on these shelves, not moving, and I am usually the one handling. So I am confident in using 3-ring binders to house my collection. There are a lot of tools I use to curate my collection, 3-ring binders being one of them. But every tool has its purpose. I would never use a 3-ring binder to store cards that are going to leave this room. If I want to take cards with me, I'll use a high-quality zipper binder. But that's another video. Also, I would never store a valuable set such as Alpha, Beta, Arabian Nights, in any 3-ring binder. They would go in a very high-quality portfolio, and all the cards would be sleeved. While I said I do have over 100 3-ring binders housing my collection, I have over 50 of these portfolios housing my collection, as well as a couple of these zipper binders. When available, I keep all my sets in these portfolios. But like I said, that's another video. I also have this beast here, but I'm not sure how to use it. So, the verdict on 3-ring binders, friend or foe? It really depends on how you use them. With proper care and for specific storage needs, they can be a valuable tool for many MTG collections. But remember, neglecting these tips can turn them into a foe for your precious Magic card. Even though I said I have 100 3-ring binders housing my collection, I don't recommend them for everyone. For me, they're the best option when trying to organize cards in an ever-growing collection. Let me know in the comments below. Are 3-ring binders a friend or foe in your collection? Share your experiences and any questions you might have. Are there any tips that I missed? So as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. I have some awesome news to share with you. I was recently accepted into the Amazon Influencer Program. What that means is I get my own storefront, so it makes it easier for you guys to shop for all your favorite Magic the Gathering products. So if you plan on ordering any Magic cards or supplies, or really anything from Amazon, I'd appreciate it if you go through my storefront. It really helps me out.